I'd like to call this meeting to order, please.
Mrs. Drake? Here. Mrs. Feeney? Mrs. Wood? Here. Mr. Hill? Here. Dr. Droman? Here. Mrs. O'Brien? Here. Mrs. Pecklick? Yes. Mr. Richardson? Here. Greg Bader? Justin Hearn? We have a forum.
You could observe the exit signs to the rear and to the side
To
of
this room, and please stand to join me and put the flags on the back end.
Oh, and sorry. My apologies. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Celebrations. I know we're real proud of the girls' varsity basketball team who went to sectional playoffs and lost a heartbreaker last night. But congratulations to the girls. They brought a lot of pride to our district, and they've had a great season. And congratulations to them. Anyone add anything else?
I thought that the band at the home games were fantastic.
Yes.
So thank you to Sharon.
Okay. Mr. Stark, run the public agenda, please.
Good evening. Everybody hear this okay? Sue? Okay, just a quick reminder that we will follow the code of conduct of the Jordan-ElbridgeBOE Central School District. I think we did a very good job at the last meeting, and I hope this evening is to do the same. Please come to the microphone, speak to your agenda item that you have listed, and if you could, please keep it to within 5 minutes out of respect for our schedule. First one up is Brad Hamer.
Good evening. I met with Dr. Zachary yesterday, and we discussed your concern about spring coaches. I'd just like to take a few minutes to give you some more information. Before, we had 6 coaching openings for the spring sports. I had advertised those positions in the newspaper and on the website, and I conducted interviews. I checked references and made my recommendation for all spring coaches to Dr. Zachary on February 15th, in time for your last meeting. At no time did anyone talk to me about positions not being approved for the spring sports season. All spring sport coaching positions were budgeted for in the 2010-11 budget. The decision had been made that we are not going to approve some of the coaches for the spring sports to save some money. I feel I should have been notified of this before I advertised and interviewed for the open positions. I may have made different decisions on some of those. budget for the next school year will look very different and tough decisions will be made, but that's a different topic. This spring, the money is there, including the $21,000 for the assistant coaches. I've been very careful about ordering supplies for spring sports, and in fact, in the discussion with Dr. Zacher, there was a couple of items, or one item that we decided not to order. Many of the coaches that are on the list for spring coaching have been working with student athletes in the off season, some 3 days a week or more with no pay. The spring teams that have assistant coaches have specific needs for 2 or more coaches because of the nature of those sports. In lacrosse, offense and defense, and substitution. Another sport has a need for an assistant coach based on safety because of the number of student athletes and the type of activity, and that's in track. I feel very strongly that paid assistant coaches are necessary for teams, so much so that I attempted to add assistant coaching positions for sports that do not presently have them in the past. Those sports being soccer, basketball, baseball, and softball. And this was to provide the safest and highest quality experience for the student athlete. This didn't happen because we've been trying to cut back for a few years. Without the assistant coaches this spring, the quality and safety of the programs will suffer. Since the coaching positions are in the budget, I feel that all spring coaches should be approved as recommended.
Can I ask you one question? Is there, as I'm looking at the list, and my daughters and girls lacrosse, is there a reason why we don't have the same number of girls assistant lacrosse coaches as we do boys assistant lacrosse coaches? Meaning that if you can't have girls, I don't understand, I'm sorry. So you can only allow boys assistant coaches in lacrosse in the contract? Okay, so what you're saying is that, I'm just trying to make sure I understand it. So the girls lacrosse assistant coach positions aren't in the teacher's contract?
The girls varsity.
But just the varsity, okay. I want to make sure I have clarification.
Next we have Gary Goodrich.
Good evening, everybody. I see actually we're going to get to probably some of my questions in the presentations. We're going to touch base on the change orders. We're going to discuss that as part of our presentation. Okay, all right. I guess I'm going to be quick tonight. I don't really have anything else. The one thing I do have is when we talk about our security, do you guys still feel that we're in need of our security and as many and that sort of thing at the present?
I think that,
It's just yours, Mary.
I think that, first of all, they required, if we had one, we had to have a second person. That was not our decision, that was made by the sheriff's department. So, but I think we're going to evaluate it as each meeting goes along. And as the Jeboe Garden improves and we feel that it's, something that can be managed here as a community, then I think we'll have a discussion to reconsider that.
Good.
So after each meeting, we sort of evaluate it and go from there.
It's not just the meetings, there's been lots
I'm sorry.
Also, it's also the Syracuse.com logs, which have had, continue to have some threatening things coming up. So until that quiets down, I think we'll continue to have presence here.
That's unfortunate.
It is.
Just isn't. Yeah. This, I don't want this to sound nitpicky. If we're going to have security, shouldn't they be in here? I mean, I don't.
No, go ahead, you can talk to that. Sure.
Actually, that wasn't the board's decision, so I'll kind of be responsible for that. What I'd like to do, and I've talked to the officers, I know that it was kind of made a joke that our hallways are safe here, but I think it's appropriate to have them there. This group has been moving along, and I hope that the board, in the not so far future, especially if things calm down, that they won't even be in the hallways. That's my hope. That was my decision, because I didn't want provocative attitude.
That's it for me. Thanks.
Gary, do you a specific change order question? I just want to make sure we can touch on that.
Well, yeah, I guess that's why I wanted to bring it up. I think you had mentioned before that you're going to discuss possibly changing your threshold and what you guys need to approve for the change orders. I think right now it's at 50, and you want to get it
50,000, we're thinking of lowering it, yes.
to like 10 or something like that.
Or,
well,
I don't know.
For discussion.
It's for discussion.
Okay. My question is this: I guess it's going to be easily answered, but can contractors, to a certain degree, take advantage of that in that respect that they know the threshold?
Yes, that's why we're thinking of doing that.
And that was my assumption. And so I think it's very important, and you brought it up last meeting especially, and I think it's extremely important that you mentioned a number that were like $900 and some thousand in change orders. That's scary. So absolutely, I'm glad that you're on board with that, because we're all going to be affected by that with those change orders that come through.
Well, some districts actually have higher change order thresholds than ours, and we were concerned that this would grind this project to a halt at 50,000, because the lower you bring that threshold, it requires board approval. So they have to wait for board approval, so
Right.
it's me, and that can slow the project down.
Right.
There is a concern that even at the 50,000, there will be some issues there.
And we could be looking twice a day.
So we wanted to see what kind of patterns were developing.
Okay.
Which will go over conversation.
Wonderful. Because I mean, something that would help is just trying to have some sort of facilitator that I think Jerry, has hands on all that.
And the architects too.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thanks, guys.
Are the facility committee meetings open to the board?
If there are community members on the facilities committee.
Next speaker is Gil LaValle.
Good evening. I've been sitting at that table for 20 years. We had it kind of this way, so we come around. Kind of see where we were, but that's all right. I want to ask you about salaries, how you evaluate people. But I didn't get the information. I was over to the office and people were away and people were sick. So I want to ask that question tonight, but I'll ask about the budget and where you are. Could you explain a little bit about where you are with the budget?
Mr. LaValle, we're going to be discussing our budget further on in the meeting tonight. It's for a board discussion a little bit later on. We'll be discussing the budget. If you wanted to talk more specifics about the budget, you could make an appointment with somebody at the district office if you wanted to do that too.
So
To get some
I have to
specific
wait
answers.
till another 2 weeks before I ask what you
No, we're going to be discussing the budget tonight.
in the open session.
In the
or
open session.
executive?
In open session, but if you have specific questions that you want to talk to Dr. Zacher about, you can make an appointment with him if you'd like. You don't have to wait for 2 weeks.
I can speak.
But,
And that's
well, once the public comments are done.
then I've got to come back in 2 weeks.
No. I'm saying you could come to the district office and have your questions answered too if you want to make an appointment.
Folks, I'd like these people to hear. I'll be back 2 weeks.
Next person, Terry Hanchett.
I didn't recognize you, Gil. I helped build your house on Plainville Road. Good evening. Keep it short to one topic. 5510, is it? You're going to be discussing tonight. Is there going to be some type of information as to what this is? At your last meeting on the 16th was the first reading of this, which there was no information as to what that was. Now you're having your second reading, and there's still no information as to what that is. Now the reason why I'm asking is on the second, no, it's not.
Reserve is not on the website? This is the new policy.
This is the new.
That's why it's not on. So we shouldn't.
I mean, the reason why I'm asking is
Do you want us to read it to you?
well, that would
Okay,
be
I can do
nice
that.
if we
Well,
were.
the board reviews it, but I didn't copy it off.
Because this is a brand new policy, it's not in the policy.
This section came from Erie One BOCES, which gives us updates for our policy and procedure manual, and this is one that came through Erie One BOCES.
Okay.
So something that they send out to all the school districts.
And I believe it's a required.
It's a requirement,
State
yes.
required policy.
Well, it just, it
Would
gives the
would it be helpful
appearance.
to read this? Do you want me to read the whole thing?
Well, you
Okay.
can do it when you vote
All right.
on it if you want. That's up to you.
We'll do it when we vote on it. I can read the whole policy to you, and then everybody can understand what it is. Okay.
Because it just gives the appearance that you're trying to shuffle through things without informing the public about what's going on.
Sure. Okay, I can read this.
Which brings me to the other point of when you made the second reading on 1511, the last meeting, there was no reading as to what that was when you voted on it. When it was first introduced on the second, Dr. Jack read it down as to what it was. Dr. Jerome suggested that the agenda items be removed from it. And then in the next meeting, there was no information as to what it was. You voted on it, and boom, there it is on the website with agenda items in it.
Sure.
Okay.
I thought we discussed it, but we can, in previous meetings, we did discuss it, but we can read through this tonight.
Okay.
Happy
Well,
to do
it
that.
just gives the appearance of impropriety.
Sure, thank you.
So,
Next we have Hunter Simmons.
Thank you for your time, Chris. I am interested in the sixth grade in Mr. Hearn's class. I am speaking on behalf of the younger grades in the school district. As an 11-year-old, I am aware of all the crises that are going on in our school district. My peers are afraid that one day this school will be no more. As kids, we should be worried about what time recess is and what's for lunch. However, we should not be concerned about our academic future being in jeopardy. Communities are built around schools. Good schools build better opportunities. For us kids, school builds bonds, friendships, learning, and creates a better path of life. And once you adults lose focus on what's important, not only will our future be at risk, but generations to come will be affected by poor decisions that are made now. I am standing in front of you today to let you know the poor morale of this school district will trickle down to us younger kids. This should not be happening. The arguing must stop. Put your differences aside and start over. Begin to work together to find solutions that will be better for all of us. My concerns are of the new student-teacher coming. My best wishes are that she will enjoy working and helping the school, and that she will learn about helping and teaching the kids. And my second concern is, will I, Hunter Simmons, be able to walk across the stage as a proud 2018 Jordan-Elbridge graduate? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Linda. Nice job. It takes a lot of courage at your age to stand up with a microphone. And you're all set, Bill? Okay? All right, thank you. Could I have approval then for the minutes here
Could I have a motion for the February 16th minutes, please?
So moved.
Connie, do I have a second? Ryan? Rick, any discussion?
We just need to make sure that we have Robin's, job description attached.
Robin's job description attached to the minutes.
That was it.
Please make sure that's done. Okay. Anything else? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Motion. Diana, you abstain and Michael. Can I have approval for the February 23rd minutes, please?
So moved.
Connie?
Second.
Diana? Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Motion's carried. Okay, moving on to presentations, Mr. Scott and, yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity. Again, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Bill Speck, Superintendent at the BOCES, and we'll be spending maybe 15 to 20 minutes discussing probably 1,500 hours worth of work. David Boyle, our Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Management, is with me this morning to back me up on some of the real detailed questions that may come up. I give Dave tremendous amount of credit for the numbers that we're going to be talking about. This has included almost every staff member at our BOCES. So, to begin with, I'm going to roll us back a little bit to last year. Last year at this time, I was here in Jordan-Elbridge discussing the cuts that we were proposing. And as you remember, last year's budget was bad. This year's budget is worse. Last year, the budget that we're going to be talking about now for the BOCES coming up 2011-12 is on the back of a horrible budget planning year last year where we had to reduce 36 positions from the BOCES. And you remember that discussion. The first sheet, and it's right in front of you, is a chart, and it's got numbers. I want to go over the chart from left to right, first of all. It's set up in columns, and the first column to the left is a service number, and that's commonly referred to as a COSER number. The next is a service title, which is an abbreviation for the type of service delivered, meaning alternative education, career tech ed, administrative, distance learning, so forth and so on. The next column is the financial change, the dollar amount change in the budget. Next column is percentage change, some brief notes that we're going to spend quite a bit of time on. Last is total component revenue, and then the column to the far right, those two columns are professional changes. That's where we are reducing staff, and in one case, adding staff. Okay, so we understand the chart. First budget that we're going to talk about is the administrative budget. This is the budget that each component board will be voting on. I believe the date is April 27th. Okay. You can see there that there's a percentage increase of change at 4.8%. We worked really hard in that budget to keep costs low, and the notes will indicate where the 4.8 comes from. 2.5% of the 4.8 is due to increase in retiree health care costs. We have BOCES spread out through all the departments at the Onondaga BOCES, but as each individual retires, all the retirement costs, the health care costs, by regulation, have to be funneled into the administrative budget, just so that you know. And that's a big increase right there of the 4.8. We also restructured for savings in the districts down below in some of the other districts. We made reductions in non-instructional personnel. As we had retirements out of our administrative offices this year, those people who lost their jobs in the other departments at BOCES had seniority tenure right to come up into the administrative budget. Those were more senior people. They carried a heavier salary. Plus, a number of our retirees had individual health coverage. The people coming up carried family health coverage. So you can see the additional percentages were the difference between the 2.5% and the health insurance for those people coming up. So that's where we came to a 4.8. The next budget is our Career Technical Ed and New Visions program budget. We worked really hard. You can see the percentage increase is very small. It's 0.9%, so very, very low increase. The unfortunate news to get to that savings is that we cut one teacher and we cut 2 support people out of that budget department. We did not lose program. The teacher that was eliminated was out of our health-related occupations program. Unfortunately, it was through a retirement. We're going to be able to continue to deliver all of that program, but we will have to contract in some clinical supervision when the nursing students go to the hospital. But it does pass on significant savings.
What's the decrease in 34 students?
34 students. That's just to give Paula and Larry an understanding that because of enrollment drop, okay, throughout our systems, the number of students coming to the BOCES in the junior and senior class dropped 34%. We're still maintaining the 27, 28% of their total 11th and 12th graders, which we're proud of. But as you know, there's quite a bit of population decline going on in the 9 components that make up our BOCES. So we'd like to add these notes because this sheet, Dave works with the business officials. So a lot of the nitty-gritty here may not be significant to you, but it's very significant to the business officials as they talk about these budgets.
So that drop was this year?
Just make it a microphone, please.
That drop of 34 students was this year?
Yes.
But you're anticipating it being similar for next year?
No, next year's budget will be built on the drop this year. We
Okay.
use this year's
So you're taking it
student
into
enrollment.
account for
Correct.
next year?
Correct.
With the decrease in students, decrease in positions, what was the major factor causing the increase in costs?
Typical that is driving your budgets here. The 0.9%, even with eliminating the teacher and the 2 non-instructional, it's the increase in healthcare, teacher retirement, those kinds of things. We held the line. In fact, we reduced in the areas of supplies and equipment and contractual. Kids will be taking less field trips as they did last year and such. And we're going to talk to you a little bit on the back of the sheet. We're going to be talking about what we did with BOCES refunds to the districts this year. Okay, the next program is our Career Technical Support Program. That's a special education program in the area of career tech preparation. You can see a significant drop in the program budget there of almost 10% drop. And that's due to the decrease of 20 students coming. We unfortunately cut a teacher there, and we also eliminated 2 teacher aides out of that program. 12-1-1 budget has been a challenge. As you know, last year there was significant take-back by a number of the districts. Okay? This year, some of those students came back into the program. So you'll see a much higher percentage increase because there was a take-back last year. Now some of those students are returning. Those are significantly challenged special education students that require quite a bit of consultant support services, whether it's physical therapy, occupational therapy, those kinds of things. And you can see that we had to add a speech therapist in that department. However, we were able to cut 2 FTE aides. So 2 aides were cut from the program. A speech therapist was put in. Due to additional students coming in, we are still at a 10% increase. That budget is far from over because as you've been reading in the newspaper, Auburn is considering the closing, possible closing of one of their buildings. If that occurs due to grade configurations, they close the elementary as opposed to a middle school, those are different grade configurations, that's going to definitely affect our classrooms, our 12-1 classrooms that are located in Auburn. It will definitely impact Auburn 12-1 students, and it's way too early to tell. They're going through a lot of public hearings on the possible closings of those buildings. So that might be one that Dave and the business officials and our CSE chairs and our special ed people are going to be looking at very closely April, May, and maybe even into June, depending on the decision in Auburn. So that's one that we're probably up in the air the most about. You remember, BOCES provides services to 9 different districts, and we work in coordination with 9 different districts. So So one decision in one area ripple affects everybody else. So please be patient with us as we develop that budget and finalize that budget. The next budget is our 811 budget, again, special education classification budget. Modest increase, 2.5%. We did decrease a 0.5 FTE speech position out of that budget. Alternative level 3, Summit School, high school, middle school, and alternative level 2 budgets, you can see as they go, there are no changes in the number of students, no changes in the number of staff in the 415 and 417. In 418 high school, Summit, there was a decrease of 3 students. Alternative level 2, a decrease in 3 students. Those are program budgets that we're going to start talking about this summer to make sure that next year there isn't a request for a whole realignment of those programs. Because as you can see, those are low enrollment programs anyways due to the nature and needs of the kids and the design. If we continue to lose 3 here, 3 there, it's going to change the context of the programming. So we're going to start discussions this summer about next year. But the commitment from superintendents and business officials for building the budget this year was solid to keep the programs as they are. The area of GED, our GED program, you can see a decrease in the budget of 2.2%. We only lost 2 student commitments there, which was a good sign. The program's doing some wonderful things for kids. It's more than what you think. We're really working with kids that completing the GED is just a piece of it. Probably 50% of those students are also enrolled in current career technical education programs, and we're also encouraging those kids to go on to community college. And we're working really hard with them that they need to continue their education. And the success rate of that program is very, very good. We're very pleased with it. Next program is distance learning. This is in the technology sphere. The increase is 1.6. We're going to be talking with the superintendents a great deal about this, starting in the spring and the summer with the advent and increase of online learning opportunities. We really feel the state education department is going to support us on this. We're going to look aggressively at being able to offer opportunities through the BOCES so your students in your components can get online experiences. So you're going to hear a lot about that in the upcoming season. The repair services, kind of a little budget. It's very uneventful. Small increase, 1.3. Instructional support services, this is a very large program delivery budget. We're very pleased to bring it in with a -%, which is -2.5%. The 503 budget, which is our duplicating copy budget, you can see we lowered the cost 20%. And Dave deserves tremendous credit along with Greg Hinman, who is our assistant superintendent, and along with Tony Abatiello, the director of that department, because they met with a wide variety of vendors, probably for about 8 months, holding the line. The lease agreements were coming up on our duplicating systems there, and they said something has to change. You need to work with us. And they held out, and it was very good because Xerox listened. Our Icon machines are being moved out. Xerox was awarded the bid and came in at a 20% savings for that coaster. And they really deserve credit because they just kept hanging in there saying, no, not good enough, no, not good enough. But it tells you what's going on out there in the economy at large. People are hungry for the business, and they will work with you if you hold the line. So very pleased, and a big thank you to David Boyle and the crew there for doing that. In our IDP department, that's Instructional Development Program, when you hear about Race to the Top, okay, and a number of us have been hearing a lot about that. And some of the comments that come through in the districts are, well, we have BOCES doing our Race to the Top. And when I hear that, I find it interesting. BOCES, for the most part, will be responsible to provide network team training to the districts. So when they say BOCES is doing our Race to the Top, it means the small, and it was a small amount of money that came through Race to the Top, to not only Jordan-Elbridge, but all the school districts. They have pooled that money to run it through BOCES, so we have trainers coming out of our IDP department to work with your teachers here, your administrators here, to hold workshops and training sessions at the BOCES to make sure all the mandates of Race to the Top are going to be implemented. So when they say BOCES is doing Race to the Top, the component schools are going to do the work with us. We're going to provide the training through SED on that. And that IDP budget is one of them. These are some of the savings you'll see here. We lowered the cost 0.7%. It did not increase because that program, if you come over to the other side, we cut a non-instructional person out of that program, but they came up to the administrative budget. So you can see some of the shifting that took place there. Curriculum coordinator development COSER came in at a 1.8%, which is a modest percent increase, and our learning technology department came in at a negative 0.5. These are very, very close percentages on change. We worked really hard. The superintendents are supporting these 100%. They understand the pain we're going through. 36 employees last year. We're looking at 10 now. In March, we're not sure about how Auburn is going to break out. There's a possible 5 or 6 more cuts depending on how we go. I don't like to sit here and talk about cuts to everybody, but that's reality. Collectively, Paula, you can answer this. You're probably about a $2 million figure you're looking at here in cuts. Collectively, when we get all of our programs from the 9 different schools, we're looking at $30 million. It adds up to $30 million worth of cuts. Auburn being the biggest significant player because their budget is so big. So remember, BOCES is responsive to you folks, the districts. We still think we're providing a very quality service program for kids. I'm very pleased that we haven't lost much program. We have trimmed program down significantly last year. We've trimmed it very close this year. I have a big concern about what I will be seeing next year with this microphone, because there's no more room to go without losing significant program. Okay, any questions on that page? The next page on the back.
Bill, I just got a question on 501 repair services. What exactly is that? And then notice you have pork barrel and dropping.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Well, that's a department that has evolved over time. Though that department used to fix overhead projectors a lot. Now they still do, okay? But it's moved on to much more higher technical repair services and advisement. Port Byron drop, you can see the cost of it is only $782. It's a very, very small budget with the BOCES that in time will probably morph right away as we get into the technology that's going to be streaming primarily through our computer systems and our smart boards. But believe it or not, still, there are a few people out there with dome projector things and odd things that are around. Slide projectors, not many, but you can see it's a very small budget. The person that was responsible for full-time in there is crossing over to do a lot more in the ISS budget with computer repair services. Yep, you're welcome. We put some notes on the back of this that are significant. Some cost savings that you didn't see on the front. Oh, wait a minute. Before we get back to that, there is one key administrative cut there that I'd like to talk to you about. The hue and cry always is, if you're going to be doing cuts across the board, how is it going to work out? Last year, we did eliminate an administrative position in our distance learning coordinator position was cut. This year, we're eliminating the director of GED and adult education program. That's a significant administrative position at the BOCES. Those functions and jobs will be cut up and put on the plates of other administrators. Just like Jordan-Elbridge is doing, just like every school district in the state is doing. And that's a significant amount of work because our adult ed program is very, very active. Pieces of all those responsibilities are going to be slivered up and gone to other areas. So you can see from the front the numbers of positions. On the back, just want to highlight a couple things. We've had a long-standing principal of summer school. David Hintz has been with us for probably 9 years, David? at least 9 years, maybe more. He is fully retiring, and we are going to compress that position with our alternative education principal, Natalie Jeboe. Again, that's giving Natalie more work to do. We're not going to have an independent principal. She's going to be taking that on, additional responsibilities, so another cost savings for the district. And she's terrific. It's going to be an interesting learning year for her, but I'm sure she'll do a good job. Number 2, BOCES is investigating relocation of alternative ed programs. We're looking at infrastructure savings and building savings wherever we can. We're running a couple alternative ed programs at the Center for Learning building on Allen Street. That's not on our main campus. We originally set those programs up there so that they could be small in nature and be designed so that they weren't large institutional learning sites for kids. We're looking very closely at bringing those programs to the main campus for a variety of reasons. One is it's tough times. 2 is we think the kids will respond well in our building. But 3 is there's some transportation saving costs we believe buried in that. We haven't run the numbers yet to detail that, but we will be doing that extensively with our transportation directors this spring. And if the numbers work and it makes sense, we'll be relocating that program to the main campus. The next number there, number 3, gives you an idea of the refunds that come back to the districts at the end of the year. As you know, BOCES cannot keep money in reserves. School districts, if you finish your year in the good, it's a great year. You can tuck it away for a rainy day. You can put it in a reserve and it will be there for you. BOCES begins with X amount of dollars and it closes with X amount of dollars. It's got to close to 0. Anything left over in the budget is distributed back to the component school districts. That means when we start our year, last year we were very conservative with everything that we did. We told teachers that it's not like the old days, you have to think about everything. Right down to the glue sticks, right down to the field trips. If you used to take 5 that you felt were essential, you may be taking 2 that you think are essential now. Every dollar was examined, and you can see the trend. From 2008 to 2009, it was $1.2 million refunded to the districts. 09-10, $1.7 million. This past year, 10-11, $2.5 million. That money was refunded on leaner budgets also. See what we're talking about? We cut the budgets to begin with, and we're working hard to make sure that we get through the year. We have the least expenditure to be able to do the refund back to the district. And I know that's very helpful. Business officials are very, very happy when that is able to occur because it catches the unexpected cost that you get in the component.
Bill, that's the total refunded to all 9 component districts,
Yes,
right?
and Dave can answer how that's done. It's based on
Yes.
based on your participation rate. So Jordan-ElbridgeBOE didn't get the 2.5 million. We have to be fair. It's based on our WADA and participation in each program. We did number 4. I want to put on for you just to develop a sense of this hard bargain we did down in our duplicating program. We renegotiated that copy center machine lease with Xerox, and they do a lot of work out of there. If you've not seen that place, please come over. We'll tour that. That is 1-day delivery back to the districts. It comes out of there. Teacher puts in the request. The next day, whatever the duplicating order was back in the district with the teacher. We worked really hard, as I said before, on saving $10,000 per month in that category, just based on bargaining power. Okay. So that's the one sheet.
Bill,
Yes.
given the direction of the refunds going up in leaner budget, do you anticipate, if you were to guess for next year, would be continue to go up or down?
Dave, I know it says Bill, we are extremely lean. These budgets scare the heck out of Dave. They scare the heck out of me too, but we are right on the edge on these budgets.
So as
Like
you
we've
spend
never
less-
done before.
So as you spend less with both, the refund coming back will be smaller too.
Yes. One of the exceptions. better repeat it. The question was, can we anticipate the budget of the BOCES being at the level of about $2.5 million next year? The answer to that is absolutely not. As BOCES budgets become tighter and tighter, there's less money to refund back to the school districts. It's the bottom line. The figure of 2.5 million also includes about $240,000 that came back as an E-rate to the school districts. We don't anticipate that next year. It's a one-time
The refund is much more complicated than what we just said, and the business officials can understand it probably the best. But the easiest way to understand it is we work hard to make sure we're not going to get ourselves in trouble. The message to teachers is such that we are in difficult times, and everything is done on a minimal basis. Okay. The next sheet gives you some data. It's cost and efficiency initiatives that were implemented currently, and there's some future initiatives there that we're going to talk about. First one is a regional transportation pilot study. Dave has spent a lot of time with this, and this is coming out of our regional operations feasibility study group that we had. The business officials did the final review, I believe, this month. Superintendents did last month, and a letter is being sent to the state education department to apply for what's called a transportation pilot study grant. Grant is not really the right word to use because there is no money affiliated with it. But what is affiliated with it is a lifting of restrictions. It's a pilot to say, we're going to award this BOCES the ability to look at creative ways, get all the regulations out of the way, look at creative ways to increase your transportation efficiencies. Okay? For example, kids leaving Cato Meridian, coming to the BOCES campus, that bus could swing through Weedsport, swing through Port Byron, pick up similar kids, arrive. You're eliminating transportation routes that currently our regulations don't allow us to do. And you can see some of the bullets that we're going to try to pursue there. Implement a shared substitute bus driver pool. Drivers would be BOCES employees. Sharing contract bus runs when and if it becomes permissible. Sharing school buses between districts. Unheard of in the past. But why should each district have 5 extra buses in case they break down? Okay? The study will actually examine what is the breakdown rates out there and how many substitute buses do we actually need given the constructs of 9 different schools. Transporting students without regard to district boundaries and centralizing CDL and mandatory bus driving training, which is a huge problem for every district. If we can get it under one training cycle, we can do a better job and also be much more efficient. So those are the kinds of things. Centralizing parts and supply bids and those kinds of things. Expanding the central business office will be key. Dave and the business officials have done a nice job doing that. We hope to add Cato Meridian on for accounts payable. Well, we did. So we're going to be moving in other directions. Civil service management was instituted. A chart is provided there to actually demonstrate the savings and the net cost to the district. And that is with BOCES aid. And if you look at the governor's proposal, let's hope that it just stays a proposal at this point, because a lot of this is under attack. We have no idea how this is going to be resolved. I can't sit here today and tell you that that's a guarantee that aid will continue in that area.
Okay, so that's on the table for this budget this year.
It's a huge discussion in Albany, huge discussion right now. And our hope is that our legislators see that this is a highly efficient manner to do business. There is still savings in there without the BOCES aid, and we're going to continue to look aggressively at that, but the aid incentivizes it, and it also helps small districts. See, if you have a big district that says, well, you know, no aid, I'm out, I'm going to lose some money, but it's not going to be that bad. That would be catastrophic to a small district. A small district couldn't do it. Shared business official, Auburn and the CBO are now sharing a business official. It's a 60-40% split. It is an experiment. It's working out quite well. 60% in Auburn, 40% governing the management of the CBO and innovation ideas. What else can we do?
I'm sorry.
Yep.
going back to the CBO.
Yep.
And the aid.
Speak up, please.
Is there an ETA, and when you think like the governor might say, okay, we're gonna grant this BOCES aid back. Do we have any kind of ETA on when they might make that final decision? I mean, right now, it's not aidable for the upcoming budget, correct?
Well, it is not aidable in the governor's proposal as it stands.
Right, okay. Any idea on when they might make all those changes official?
Well, if the governor is intending to pass that budget on time, it'll be done by then. It is the talk of Albany right now. It is a huge conversation. We're working very aggressively. All the districts are working with legislators in this capacity. This is a huge, I would say, assault on small rural districts. This could be, I mean, we're all heading into trouble. This could push you over the brink if you attack non-instructional aid, because they're attacking all non-instructional aid, not just the CBO. Not
Are
the
they
abuse.
talking about buses too?
That would be transportation aid.
Transportation.
Not yet, but it will be discussed at
That's
some
not on the
point.
table yet.
Yes. Committee on Special Education Chairperson, we did launch a shared position between Auburn and Port Byron. It's a pilot, but it does pass on savings to the districts. It's an aggressive pilot. It's not an easy thing to do. When you get into special education meetings and such, you got to be there. And so scheduling is tight. We have to have real strong support people in each of those districts. And as I said, we are piloting it, and we're hoping that we have some good results by July 1st, where then decisions will be made. The last one's very exciting. We have cooperative bidding. We have come together as a joint management team. That's what the JMT stands for. That means 4 BOCES, not just one BOCES, but 4. OCM, Oswego, Cayuga, Onondaga, and TST now have a working committee. Dave is very active on this committee. And the biggest work was actually comprising the committee, setting up the structures, getting meeting cycles, deciding who from each BOCES was on there. And then they launched a purchasing bid for paper, which is probably over 50 schools right now, maybe even more. So as that experiment succeeds, and we're anticipating at least 10 to 15% savings on that, that's a lot of money when you consider the amount of paper that many schools use. As we meet success there, we hope to then move to the next commodity product. We're trying to keep them non-controversial, because some schools get very picky about the type of football helmet. We're trying to stay away from type of baseballs or those. We're trying to, things like paper, toilet paper, supplies that are non-controversial, things that people aren't going to argue about. Because we are getting to the point where someday we can't argue about any of this. If it's going to save money to keep teachers in classrooms and kids allowed to play sports, we've got to look at it. So we're excited about that.
On that line, when I was at the legislative breakfast, we brought up the idea of the healthcare consortiums. And one of the superintendents I thought had a good idea, because from one BOCES to the next, depending on the healthcare consortium that you belong to, it can vary quite a bit in expenses. For us, it's sometimes $4,000 more than a BOCES that's in Western New York or whatever. And I just wondered, is there anything on the table or on the docket that we can start looking at healthcare too? I mean, are the BOCES considering pulling together and actually coming up with one big healthcare plan that's more affordable
It'd be
and
better
equitable?
It would be wonderful if the state could handle it for us, but again, that's a huge political thing. On the back page, next page, you will see the Harvard Study Healthcare Plan. About a year ago, Dave, this started?
Yes.
Okay, about a year ago, Harvard was brought in as a
Right.
consultant for the plan, to study the plan, to see if it was working, if it made sense. The bullets there you can see were the highlights of their report. This is something that's going to continue to be a huge conversation. Where are we going with healthcare?
But one of the superintendents brought up that where a BOCES that he came from, that was in, I think it was in Genesee BOCES, there was like a $4,000 difference in the family plan with our healthcare consortium here versus the one that he came from. And that's a big difference, So
We
you
could
know,
talk, we could talk hours
I
here,
know we
because
could.
then
I'm
you
just
get
saying
into negotiation of contracts.
I know, but it's a huge cost savings, and it's a non-instructional area, and
Yeah.
it's, I know it's the elephant in the room, but it is a huge
Sure.
cost.
Glorious would be the day if we could get this settled statewide and we got it out of the negotiation circles. That would be a marvelous day, and who knows, we may live long enough to see it. If we have good health insurance. Bad joke, sorry. Down below here, the last thing, and then I will sit down. We are also aggressively involved in looking at a literacy center grant. We've been working hard at this for over a year. We're hoping that we're going to be successful. When we started writing the grant, we were getting a lot of green lights from the folks in Albany and our local people that helped us with this. However, what's happening now is some people are saying with the poor budget conditions, almost everything is off. And we have spent hours and hours and days in collaboration with people from the county, people from the college to get this literacy grant going. Our hope is that we're going to hear positive. We don't know when and if, but if so, that's going to be a tremendous benefit for our county and our region to develop literacy skills, not only in young people, but adults with young people that affect the little ones. In other words, moms and dads that maybe dropped out of school that need more than reading literacy. It's almost life literacy. Where do I go if I have a problem with a heating bill? Where do I go and how do I access employment? So it would be job training, those kinds of things. So we're hoping that that comes through and we'll know in the near future. This was a lot of work and it's still a work in progress. We boiled it down to 2 pages to get you folks informed. Larry has been at the table with us over at the BOCES as we've talked about these programs and these cuts. It's been painful, but it's something that needs to be done.
I just had a couple questions. I mean, the CBO is being run currently, and to me it seems like an excellent opportunity for safety. But doesn't it also depend on how well a district uses the CBO to the fullest extent?
Mr. Boyle? Yes, we can like
Thank you.
house rules.
Yeah, our CBO is really team oriented, unless those in the state. We concentrate on accounts payable and payroll. In districts that are in the CBO generally do both. There's one exception. So we're seeing a lot of success in that. And we give the business officials a report on the status of the union of the CBO. But the economics of it look very, very good. There's other areas that we'd like to expand into, but at this point we don't have a state. For example, treasurer's position is one. We're waiting for that to be resolved. We'd like to take a look at doing some more work for human relations. At this point we can't do it because of the state requirements. If those open up, we start moving in that direction. We're having the HR taking a little encouragement in there. We're reporting the civil service forms for our districts with Peter County. And we've also started cross-contracting with the BOCES for online advertisements. So starting in that area.
And I have another question that we can follow up on another time. The regional operations facility study. We're now was heavily involved in that, and it was presented to the board and to the public quite a bit years ago. And I would just like to follow up as far as JV side goes, like the wrap up the final report says some estimate. How did it impact us? Did we get recoup all our costs that we put into it, that kind of thing? We could follow up.
Yeah, there's a couple activities that are still going on. For example, there's an extension of the transportation study that was run. So in conjunction with the grant recently, that final expenditures will throw around our due at the end of this month. And then the final report is due in June.
discussion of change orders. I know that a couple board members had some concerns about the level at 50,000 and considering changing it to a lower level. So, okay. Speaking of like this, thanks.
I know we've had some conversation back and forth about this, and I've kind of taken this, the change order piece, under my own wing, just to try to get educated on it, try to get a better understanding of how it works, how it operates, talk to some contractors, how they generally operate in the non-public sector, so on, just to try to get some kind of an idea of how the operation works. And in my research that I did, obviously I was concerned about the dollar amount and slowing to a stop back then on the $50,000. I did not vote for that. But with that said, we've got a lot of data in the interim, and of the 146 change orders that I have, granted, this is dated, I don't know if this is off the small print. I think we got this about a month ago. I want to say, so it's probably 2 board meetings ago. It's where I was quoting the numbers from before. We have 146 change orders. 28 of them were above 10,000, and only 9 of them were above 20,000. So obviously that $50,000 threshold to me seems high now, because we have the data to support that we don't necessarily need that, but it hasn't slowed to a stop because there haven't been those dollar amounts on the table for concern. And I guess I wanted to reevaluate it because of the ability for a contractor to do just what Gary had said. They're human beings, they know the numbers, they can kind of create, especially when it comes to time and materials, those numbers to fall into place underneath any threshold that you set as an organization. And so originally when I first started on this bandwagon, I was at the $10,000 mark. I think that's low. And in the research that I've done in that time period, I think that's a low dollar amount, that's too low. But I think with only 9 being above 20,000, that 20,000 would be a more feasible number. And it shouldn't stop the project because the 9 that were above that $20,000 mark, I think 4 of them were because we missed something in a bid that wasn't really necessarily a change order, so to speak, but more of a architectural faux pas, maybe is probably the best way to put it. So I'm offering up to the board to consider a $20,000 number. That's just based on my information.
Connie, I think if we could, we have people overseeing the project. And I think my concern is, if someone wants to get around the minimum, they always can. There's no doubt about that. They know what the minimum is. I have more fear that if someone's not paying careful attention, there has to be a way that change orders are related, if they're about the same thing. I would like to see the people in charge take a really close look when several change orders come in from the same company to see if they're related in a way that maybe they are trying to, and they could be trying to put it through just so as not to have any kind of stoppage or delay. That is absolutely understandable. But that would be my concern, that people are watching that one company isn't breaking something apart into 2 or 3 smaller pieces in order to get around it.
And I have, in this research that I've done, I have tried to spot check and calls, it's been extremely helpful on it. The problem is, and I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus here, but I can't get the information from not the people sitting at this table and not anybody within the school district, but from the architects that I'm looking to get. I wanted to spot check just for that. I asked for multiple change orders of all different dollar amounts from the architects themselves. They've yet to produce those documents for me. Just for that reason, Erica, is to try to take a look and see what is time and materials. On our change order list, we see T&M. Well, that's time and materials. What is that? What are we approving? And I'm not saying that nothing is, I'm not saying there's any impropriety whatsoever. Okay, let me make sure that I make that very clear. But I think as a board, we need to make sure that that's the case. And I have concerns that I asked for that information on February 2nd, and I have it in email, and I haven't gotten it.
What can we do about that?
We've tried, Paul's tried. I've talked to her myself. Paul said that she would get a hold of the gentleman next above, in line above the guy that I had spoken to myself regarding the information. And we've tried. I'm not saying, again, I've done some research on other school districts. Generally, if you get into a more of an architectural managerial type instead of a clerk of the works, which is really more where most building projects, public school building projects are going now, is more of a managerial company where there's more than one person involved.
Like a construction management
Like a construction management firm, then obviously you have more people watching every single dollar that's going in and out, and it's just a little bit more of a checks and balance. But we have one person managing this and the clerk of the works along with the architect. And again, I do not want to lead. He's done great for us in the past on previous projects. This is a major project, and I just personally feel that it's not going to stop the project if we stay at a $20,000 mark. There's only 9 of 146 change orders. It's not going to slow that project down. Again, just my opinions.
We get some more information from the architects.
I would like to hear input from the facilities committee too.
People who've been working with it,
They don't have.
It was brought up that we needed to take a look at it. And I will ask the Budget Development Committee meeting, which consists of the administration as well as Board of Education members. One of the things that we were looking at possible ways and areas that we could reduce the budget for the 2011-12 school year. And a question arose relative to assistant coaches. At that time, there was a considerable amount of discussion about that, and of course, no decisions were made. But the issue came up about the appointment of spring coaches and whether or not we should look at that and should we make any changes at that point. As a result, it was decided that the Board of Education would have that discussion and as an entire board to decide whether or not that's something that we wanted to implement now, or whether we wanted to implement it at all, or whether we wanted to implement it next year. So prior to the board acting on that, I would suggest that we have some sort of a conversation regarding that to decide what direction we want to go. I think Mr. Hamer addressed it as our athletic director, and I did meet with him and with Ms. Jenks very recently to discuss that same issue.
Some of the things that we discussed in the budget committee is everything has to be on the table. We're facing huge budget deficits, and we have to look at absolutely everything that we can to find cost savings wherever possible. One of the things that I ran for when I ran for the board was to not take away any opportunities for our students that they currently have. One of the ways that I thought of a possibility for keeping as many of the activities, extracurricular activities that we have now as possible is looking at not cutting sports or any of the actual activities, but looking at other ways that we can still provide those, but cut in administrative costs. One of those possibilities is looking at the assistant coaching staff to see if there's some savings possible there. We also have a number of volunteer coaches at many of the levels, and perhaps we could look at increasing the use of volunteer coaches.
I'm fine with that, but I have a hard time with putting this spring season on the table when it's already here. It's already here, yeah. I mean, they're already in the school year. This is the time to debate it.
So you're saying for,
I'm saying for this year,
for just
I
this
don't think
spring, you
it's-
want to keep it the way it is,
Yeah.
but going forward.
I would
we look at
encourage
it.
volunteer coaching, just to, for people to get the experience, get to know the students, the sports, the athletes. I mean, if you're saying encourage and move forward with more volunteer coaches, I'd say do that now. I don't agree with cutting something that's already in place at this point.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we have to stay true to our word at this point in time. The decision already had been made to move in this direction. We continue this direction, certainly knowing that next year is going to be a totally different story and everything's going to be on the table, but this shouldn't be on the table at this point in time.
And I don't think it was Frank brought it up to put it out there for. In that meeting, we were talking about the budgets, we were looking at everything. I don't necessarily, I think it kind of evolved to, could it happen for the spring? There are other expenses that have not been accounted for in the athletic budget that we were trying to discuss how we were going to pay for those things. Not everything was budgeted for, and we do have to come up with some, without getting into too many specifics, we do have to come up with some money for this year, to finish out this year in the athletic budget, related back to some personnel issues. So, I think that was what we were all talking about, and it kind of came up, would it even be a feasible thing for us to do?
Anybody else? So I'm hearing from the board a consensus to keep the assistant coaches as is for now.
Yes.
And we will reevaluate that for the coming year. Okay. All right, moving on to the discussion of the 2011-2012 budget. I know Larry sent us all a memo about possible areas to look at for budget cuts.
I intended that this portion of the meeting be a discussion with the Board of Education to provide the administration with some direction. As Mr. Richardson said, the Budget Development Committee wanted to look at everything. I've given you a list of issues, and for the benefit of our public tonight, that list includes staffing, class size guidelines, administrative staff reductions, instructional staff reductions, non-instructional staff reductions, BOCE services, instruction in general in terms of course offerings, class sizes, as I've already mentioned, in terms of minimum class sizes, transportation, in terms of whether or not we retain group stops or return to a building-by-building stop, eliminating midday UPK transportation, and elimination or reduction in conferences. I'll look at the entire athletic program and see if there are areas there that we want to look at. And it was mentioned that there was a possibility to reduce coaching position or reduce athletic offerings, restructure teams. Brad and I have discussed what has happened previously with the football program, a 7-8-9 modified program versus a 10-11-12 varsity program. Some school districts have eliminated or are at least thinking about eliminating modified sports, reducing the number of contests, eliminating postseason play, limit competitions to nearby schools. We looked at the music department, and in terms of the expenses, in terms of marching band, the number of stipended positions that existed, our entire extracurricular program in terms of the offerings, the number of students that are served, the goals of those programs, the possible elimination of department chairs and team leaders, reduction in field trips, taking a hard look at equipment replacement, look at the community use of district facilities. As many of you know, if the district were required to adopt a contingent budget, any uses of the buildings would be charged back to the individuals or groups using them, and that's a requirement by law. There are many items that would require negotiations to implement. Salary issues, salary freezes, health care contributions, tuition reimbursements, local retirement incentives, payment for unused leave days, and proctored pay. And it's very important, and I share this with the Board of Education, that these are ideas for the board to discuss. Decisions have not been made at this point, but we will have to be making some very hard choices, and I think that the Board of Education needs to be intimately involved. This is a Board of Education prepared budget that the Board of Education will adopt. It's not an administration's budget. And so I think it's very critical that these discussions be held in an open forum and that the public understands the seriousness of the issues that we're facing. You will not cut the amount of dollars that we're going to be required to cut without touching on staff reductions. It can't be done.
I'm sorry. Larry mentioned that this was the Board of Education budget, but we want you to understand that we have had input from administration, and we've had input from all the building administrators, we've had input from the sports department, the music department. They will all be involved in this process. We are not taking any of this lightly, and we are getting input from all sources in the district.
Larry, do some of these cuts above the listed items require negotiation with unions? Above that, aren't there items that are also part of the contract? And if you cut those items and it affects the contracts, does that require negotiation? Like if the extracurricular, that's part of the contract. Their advisors and
The extracurricular positions are in the contract. The stipends for those positions are in the contract. There is no requirement that they have to be filled. If they are filled, then you must pay the contractual amount, unless you establish some sort of an agreement with the bargaining unit.
no, that's what I didn't understand. Thank you.
Right. So I'd like to kind of start at the very top here and talk about class size guidelines. I didn't know if somebody would like to kind of give some input, thoughts about that. Anybody? I just,
I think the lower levels, it's so important to keep them down.
And I think in the numbers that Paula and Larry brought to us at the last budget committee meeting, the elementary numbers were minimally affected, if I remember correctly. And I don't have all those right in front of me, but the UPK K3 were 1 and 2 change per class size, still well under what the stated effective teacher-to-child ratio is. And so I think that we should still be okay at that elementary school level. I think it's when you get into that middle school, high school type thing, especially in the high school scenario where you're getting into all the elective type courses. And how often do you want to offer those? Do you offer them every other semester instead of every semester? Do you have a minimum class size of 15, or you don't hold that class? Those types of things too.
Are we talking about a number? Are we still at like 20, less than 20 in the K-1-2 building, less than whatever the numbers were before?
I think it was in maybe K1 and 2 that we were still
So it's 20,
under 20. Well,
maybe
21 and 22?
22 else.
And it's not going to affect the budget? Those numbers remain the same, and there's not going to be a lot of staff cuts in that area? Is that what?
well, it depends on what we agree upon as the class size and what the enrollment is in the grade. I think in the past, we've always tried to set the number low, which has given us, I'm not quite sure what word to use, but
pay now or pay later. I mean, that's what we, as a board, have felt very strongly to direct the money into the early education and the reading and the literacy and all of that. We've done that as a board. If it's possible to still do that, I hope we can.
I think we were trying to keep them low at the lowest levels.
I don't think there was a number in, again, but I don't think there was a number per
looked at class sizes that way and to see what numbers are like? I haven't seen that information.
It hasn't, I mean, again, it goes back to the same thing. We would like to keep them at, was the numbers that we're talking about, and I think that those numbers were 26 and
27 in
per
high
middle
school.
school. And then when you get into high school, that's where the numbers drop back up because you have so many more specialized classes. And so that's where you get into starting to talk about how do you offer everything that needs to be offered? How do you do that and still make it affordable?
Like Connie had mentioned, we did talk about offering things on every other semester, even some every other year. And we had also talked, and Bill Speck had mentioned, perhaps investigating some more online learning, distance learning.
And Penny's not here, but I'm sure she would say this. We are in phase 2 of the capital improvement project. I believe it's phase 2, putting in Roger a group of
large instruction,
which will make things easier to offer that type of a larger group learning a little less often and still not affect the so to speak, high school career path that could be affected for students. So there's a lot on the table. We're trying to. Larry and Paul have done a great job.
We have to decide here and to give people direction. What is our bottom line for class size in the high school, the middle school, and elementary? I think we need to really define that tonight.
I think we were looking at the high school in terms of 15. I think that was the number. Well, but there are some, it depends. There are some courses. I don't think we were talking about things like your basic 9th grade English or 10th grade English. We were looking at some of the electives where, as Connie mentioned, we might have 4 or 5 or 6 or 7, students taking that class. And elimination would be the last thing we'd want to do. That's why we were looking at not offering them every semester.
So are you kind of, what I'm hearing is maybe you're talking about some of the more specialized courses that you want to place a number limit on at, say, 15, something like that? And that maybe offer it every other year or every other semester, depending on how they're set up.
Correct. We're going to have to try to gather that data and figure out how often that can be offered. And unfortunately, it's probably going to fall back on Mary, so that she's going to have to call and figure out how many students are we educated per year and or per semester.
But we need to get the numbers so they can come back.
I think 15 was the number.
15 for the specialized courses. What about for the regular general education classes up at the high school?
Let me backtrack.
How do you know if that's going to make any impact whatsoever? I mean, if you have a teacher who has one class during the day is short, that class is cut, you flip the teacher.
And that's where the reevaluation of where that teacher is teaching is going to have to be placed on. It's going to have to be reevaluated. And I think that we said, and Larry said this, that if there's something out there where there's a 12, there's 12 kids, and it's not going to be offered again for the second semester, and you have to look at them on a case-by-case basis. You can't say, okay, it's going to be 15, and we're never going to go under 15. Because there might be just that case where you've got a group of seniors that are trying to take this class the second semester, and they have to take it to graduate. You're going to have to offer the course at 12. So I think, it's a guideline and not a steadfast rule. But yeah, it's going to definitely take some creative management.
You also need to realize that you have an obligation to meet the needs of the students. So you're right, if 15 is your minimum number, it doesn't mean that you would never hold a class with fewer than 15. For example, if we think about students who are in a sequence in a foreign language, if you've committed that you're going to offer 4 years of a foreign language or 5 years of a foreign language, you don't then later on not offer that last year because you have 8 students. So you have to make those commitments. Also, because you can get an average, doesn't mean that you're going to be able to staff a school and provide offerings for students and stay specifically within those averages. You may have a situation where you have a teacher who theoretically could be a 0.8 teacher. Well, it may be far more advantageous to everyone concerned to make that teacher full-time, retain the teacher, and offer an additional class. You know, some savings that you could develop just don't cut it when you're dealing with an educational arena. It's not like you're making widgets, and so therefore you have to continue to provide for the needs of students. We are looking for guidelines. We don't want to make cuts. But I have to tell you, there will be cuts. If we're looking at somewhere between a $1.5 to $2 million reduction in our budget, you cannot do that by cutting materials and supplies. And when it comes to the electives, it's nice to have a large number of electives, but quality programs can be built around fewer electives. If you have 8 12th grade English electives, you may be able to function with 4 electives or 6 electives. It doesn't mean you just cut them all out, but you want to provide a variety of course offerings for students that will make them competitive in the career market, in the college market, and you want to make sure you don't devastate your instructional program. But we will have to make some very hard decisions, and we're going to have to start to list priorities so we know where to cut first. And it's not business as usual. Albany is not going to come up with a large sum of money and bail us out. I think you people lived it last year. Prior to last year, the game in Albany typically was the governor creates a budget, the legislature creates a budget, and typically more money came. And so a lot of people ran around saying the sky was falling, and it never fell. Well, I think it's fallen. And now we're going to have to make these decisions. But don't think you can just give us a blanket number, and then we can do that.
What number do you want?
One of the things that Larry, you were talking about is that, and I'm not offering this as a cut, it's just a for instance, is that we offer often OCC, SUPA, and AP all within one subject area. And maybe what we need to consider is, maybe just AP, since AP is probably one of the more acceptable things nationwide versus OCC and SUPA. I don't know, I'm just throwing that out there, but we need to kind of maybe look at those specialty subject areas and consider, the multiple offerings that we have within one subject, and maybe pare that down, like Larry said, instead of 8 to 4. Give the kids still some options, but not as many. But it would still allow them, readiness for college and a competitive edge. So.
The other thing that we discussed regarding the advanced courses was the success rate of the students in those classes. We need to look at, when kids go on to college, what credits are accepted by the colleges they go to from these courses. And if they aren't getting college level credit for them, what value is it really for them to go through the extra work, the extra money that it costs them and the school district to take these classes if they're not getting the value for them afterwards?
Right, that was definitely part of the discussion. We offer some of these courses, the advanced level courses, and there is a minimum score the students need on the final test in order to receive college credit. And some of the courses are definitely not as successful as we would like them to be. And the tests are very difficult. Some of them, a very small number of the students who take actually get up to the level to get the college credit.
I think that number was less than 20%, less than 20%.
In some of them.
But there's another way.
Oh, yes, you can ask the course, you don't need the college credit. And they get high school credit.
Well, there's another way to look at this too, is that it's not always about getting that college credit. And I guess kind of my philosophy, maybe just more as a parent, is that it gives your child a chance to see what it's going to be like in college. And when they take an AP class, they find out what kind of work there is. Now, they may not get the credit for it, but I think it's kind of a wake-up call, like, well, there's a lot more work involved here than a typical high school study. So, you know, it is important that our kids get credit, but I also think it's important that our kids have that exposure to, you know, some higher level thinking and higher level courses that are going to push them and make them realize what life is going to be after high school and college.
Yeah, we agree with that too.
Yes.
We were just talking in terms of offering the OCC, SUPA, and EP classes all in the same subject area. Is it really necessary to do those? You can get the same type of feel with the advanced placement classes as you can with the other courses without having to go through the expense and everything else involved with the SUPA courses. If they're not getting credit for it afterwards.
It is quite an expensive process to put our students through some of these courses. Some are paid for by the students, some aren't. And some of our teachers now are very well versed in the rigor for these courses. It might be possible to put that rigor into some of the classes.
Okay, so I guess anything else on class size you discussed, anything like that, staffing? Moving on then, talking about BOSI services, some of the things that we're discussing with driver's ed, Novenet, summer school, professional development, curriculum coordination, participation, leader training, and shared social worker.
How do we do without the shared social worker? Do we have to replace that position here?
I don't know anything about the shared social worker.
Can we do without, you're saying we could eliminate the shared social worker? Would we then have to be required to hire one within?
No.
No?
No, we should be able to cover that.
Do we?
Are we currently sharing a social worker?
So we're currently sharing a social worker with the village.
No, I don't know if it's with the village. Who do we share the social worker?
Weeds Board.
Weeds Board. And we also get the service from BOSI? Shared social worker?
So we could cover that, you know, possibilities.
Is it- yes,
These
it's
are all,
implications.
these are all discussion.
Is it the same person? One person. So if we don't have the shared one, then we have none.
No, don't we have,
No,
we have
that's
some
not true.
internal social workers.
We have social workers.
So we have one shared one, and how many in the district? One.
I don't know. It would basically be like they get a position of this.
What's the social worker do if we already have social worker?
It would be basically, in my, the impression that I got
Dropping
was.
enrollment, we could handle it, is that the thought? I don't know, I'm not sure why this is on the draft.
Would you let us know what you're talking about, please?
We're discussing the shared social worker position here, just trying to understand that position in the district.
I would suggest that we let Larry get more information and bring that to the budget, next budget committee meeting.
With some dollar amounts attached to some of these.
How was, okay, anybody have any feelings on red?
Right. But
What about,
This stuff is just out here for us to talk about. What are we willing to say, okay, you have to take a long, hard look at, and what is a sacred cow? What is absolutely we cannot do without? And that is what I believe we're supposed to be
okay,
talking about.
driver's ed, how do you?
I can tell you, I don't have any problems with anything except the shared social worker. In that
Do we have-
category.
Do we have dollar amounts of what the
No.
driver costs?
I don't think we have dollar amounts for any of it right now.
I just have a concern with the driver's ed. I think it's such an important component of it. It's something that the students could pay for themselves, or what I mean with the law enforcement friends, and one of the most dangerous weapons is the vehicle. And so when I was working my shift overnight last night, I see more injuries with trauma from more vehicle accidents than state driver language won't, but at least to get an option somehow. If there's any way to continue it, I think it's certainly a value to our youth for their safety and the safety of everybody here that at least consider keeping it if possible.
From what I understood, they will have the ability to take driver's ed, it just won't be right here. And they'll have an option to take it elsewhere.
They'll have an option to take driver's ed elsewhere.
And there'll be a cost associated with that. But they will still have an option to take it. Yes. And many school districts, unfortunately, in the area have eliminated driver's ed.
That's
Unfortunately. I agree with you, Mike, 100%.
But what you're saying is that if we eliminate it here, the kids would have an option to take it someplace else. I think then I'm fine with this list of Okay.
Well, we do, so one thing, we do want to get some more information on the
The
social
sheriff's
worker. Are we sharing the Beadsburg 50/50?
Speak into the mic, please.
Are we sharing the social worker with Beadsburg 50/50, or is it some other type of shared arrangement, not quite 50/50? And how many in-house and what their responsibilities are?
And these are all just discussion.
These are all topics for discussion tonight.
They're not on here saying, okay, yeah, we want to, we're just basically saying we want to discuss and research this. It's not that we're going to eliminate that for clarification.
On the next list, the next group,
Instruction. Let me just read the public so they understand. Under instruction, there's reduced electives, reduced AP, SUPA, OCC offerings, combined libraries, minimum class size 15 students, language offerings.
combined library, I assume you're only talking
Ransell and Nobles, yes.
Can we get numbers on that?
Is it the staffing?
Are we talking staffing and?
Are you actually talking about the physical space or the staffing?
I think we were talking about the staffing.
I believe it was the staff. I believe it was the staff.
Yes.
But when you're saying combine the library, I'm thinking you're.
No, not the physical area.
Administration of it.
Right. I think reducing electives is something we need to seriously look at. I mean, elective isn't mandatory for graduation. It's nice that the kids will have, I think they should have some, but maybe we need to pare that down. I don't know specifically what that would look like, but we talked already about the AP and the SUPA OCC offerings, class sizes we talked about, and language offerings. Does anybody have anything to talk about? Comment on that?
When it comes to the language offerings, and I know it's French specific, for example, I'm asking first, my daughter just started French. So does that mean that it would be a slow process phase out? Are we talking about eliminating it like now? It would be, so the people that are in 7th grade, which is where this language is starting right now, will be available to take French all the way through until they graduate, if they so choose.
Once again, I just repeat, we need to make sure that we meet our commitment to students. So absolutely, if you're going to eliminate something, you phase it out. You don't immediately stop, and then you have a student who took 2 years of French, let's say, and now can't take a remaining 2 years or 3 years. Yes, anything that is done along those lines would have to be phased out.
I think too that if you look at the emerging languages in this world, French is not one of them.
No, it's not.
So I think that, it's something to consider anyhow as far as our language offering. Certainly Spanish is one of the primary languages now, but looking at Arabic and Chinese are really the emerging languages, so.
And I was going to say, I remember years ago, Jeannie might remember, where we had Latin.
Yes.
And we did phase that out. It was a very small number of students, but we made sure, I think that it might have been distance learning, but they were able to finish out their sequence before we eliminated it totally.
That's what I was going to ask now. How would that look for a teacher that's in the district that's teaching French and knows this going to be phased out 2 years? If there's another opportunity that comes up somewhere else, what's going to keep him or her from jumping ship for a more permanent position? And then how do we deal with that?
Well, about going down to part-time. There's online or distance learning. So I think we do have,
Your district, you know, I think our language teachers now have the ability to.
some of them do both.
I believe.
Some of them do both.
That are teaching French, teach Spanish also, I believe. I'm not 100% sure.
I don't know that.
Or have the ability to do so.
All right. Okay, anything further on that?
I would like input, can we get information also from the administrators?
Yeah.
And they had, Diane, so that you know, when Larry and Paul, when we started this process, they had already contacted and spoken with the building administrators.
So this will be added to their input?
No, this is part of their.
This is incorporating their input.
That's what I was saying when Larry said this is a Board of Ed budget. We have had input from the administration and different departments. Now, there might be a couple of things that are in addition, but as we keep saying, this is a discussion. We need more information, we need to talk, because the Budget Committee needs to talk about this. So we're a little bit familiar with what's here and what we've discussed, but it does need to come to the entire board.
And then the community.
Exactly.
Next
Tuesday next.
Next Tuesday?
Okay. Moving on to transportation, we're talking about retaining group stops and eliminating midday duty-free transportation.
Is that not aidable? Is that the way I understand that?
Is UPK aidable, the midday?
The UPK
It is not aidable. It's about $90,000. $97,000.
Is it possible, and again, I have 3-year-olds, so obviously this one's near and dear to my heart. But I guess, and I have the ability to take her back and forth, so I'm lucky. But I guess my question is there a reason why we do morning and afternoon? Can't we just do a morning and or an afternoon so we can eliminate a run altogether? I mean, isn't there a possible way where we can just say, let's get all of our UPK kids in the morning?
We'd have to hire more staff.
Why? Oh, well, yes. Okay, but I'm sorry, I get that. But wouldn't that be less, I mean, if you hire another person and say whatever that salary is, it would be half of what it costs us to transfer.
But then we would need 2 half-time teachers, and that might be, that could be more difficult to find than one full-time doing the morning and an afternoon session. I mean,
I'm just throwing it out there as a discussion piece.
It's a possibility.
You know, I don't know, I'm just trying to think outside of the box.
How many students are we talking on this midday run? Approximately.
20.
And do they are dropping off and picking up at the same time?
Yes. Yep, they are dropping off and picking up at the same time.
And I have to tell you that I still am with that pay now or pay later. And I think we're grabbing.
And it is full. I mean, it's full. Well, there's a couple of openings, but in general, it is being utilized. It's not
Should we have
utilized.
1 bus? 3 buses?
Well, they span and bang in the whole district. I think that in the long run, this saves us as a district funds. I mean, when we're educating, when they come in and their grades are sponges.
I mean, there's also, like Connie mentioned, if we had 2 half-time teachers, I mean, there might be people looking for part-time work. I mean, that's the other possibility.
I think we probably do have a pretty big pool of people out there who are not going to be working.
But not all of them might want part-time work,
They might
but
not,
there
but-
might very well be
An opportunity
for people who have not been able to find that part-time work.
Or that somebody who just does want to. And I'm just, this is
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, we gotta keep moving. Okay.
Yes, and aides, or assistants, of
Just on that, do we have the space to have everybody in the morning?
might have to get creative, yeah. I mean, there's space here. It just might not be where it is right now.
You have space in Elbridge and then space in Jordan, and then
Maybe you put it all.
transportation would be a lot less. Cart the kid from Memphis to Elbridge, and cart from Jordan.
Well, you gotta remember, it's a big district. So yeah.
That's what I'm saying, you're cutting the transportation in
Right,
half.
if we moved it to Ramsey.
Well, not all of them, but I mean, do it geographically a little bit. If you have two classes, and you have two different areas, put the classes where the kids are.
I definitely agree. I think we really need to try somehow, some way to think outside of the box on this one. I hate eliminating transportation in this district. I agree with it. I know it's a big dollar amount. I struggle with it.
Well, you know, I think, and I'm not saying one way or another, but you have to consider it's a non-instructional area. Okay, when you're talking about a person versus transportation, you know, we may have to come down to those types of decisions, but, okay, I think,
Well, the other thing we also don't know is how many of those people would get there without the transportation.
I would just imagine.
Well, I mean, what percentage of the students are on Elbridge?
I wish Sue was here. I want to say off the top of my head, hey Sue, when we added, do you remember when we added transportation to UPK? Did the enrollment like double?
No. We were probably lacking 5 kids at the most. Now it's full, but full all year. So we have the capacity to have 54 kids, 18 in 3 classes, 2 morning classes, 1 afternoon class. You cannot have more than 18 without adding another teaching assistant. So in the past, prior to transportation, we were probably short about 5 kids. We also participate with Seneca Community Action Agency. They have a full-time UPK program there, full day. Our Cayuga County residents can attend that program. We're mandated to partner with them. We give them 10% of our grants, which we're mandated to give them. But our grant only funds the labor, the teachers and the teaching assistants that are managed. Does not fund transportation. According to state ed, they have no plan to fund transportation. Now, in the future, ever.
I don't want to lose any kids, but it's not as high a number as we thought.
And it might change from year to year too.
Absolutely, but there might be.
In this day and age when people are going back to work,
There might be creative ways of doing that too. I mean, some of these families could be very close to. I mean, we might just have to offer more help and be more creative if we look at that.
all right. Moving on to athletics. There's, the options here are reduced coaching positions, and that would be referring to assistants, reduce athletic offerings, cut high-cost teams, cut low participation teams, restructure teams, modify 7 through 9, varsity 10 through 12, eliminate modified sports, reduce number of contests, eliminate postseason play, limit competitions to nearby schools. That's the decisions. Okay?
Is there a conversation amongst, maybe Brad, you know the answer to this, is there conversation amongst the athletic directors in the school districts? Are they looking at, it would be wise if you ask me, for all of them to say, let's do this, and we can be competitive with others. Because if we go to modified 7 to 9, make that JV university only 10 to 12, but we don't have anybody to compete with. So is there a conversation out there?
Dr. Jacker wrote an email and the local school districts are posted. They, I think, without getting real specific, some of them are better off than we are. They don't want to make those types of changes. They're willing to stick it out with 7
or they're eliminating modified.
I thought, did Skinny was eliminate modified? No?
They say
I know they're eliminating one modified sport, that's.
I met with some of the ADs from our league today, talk about the budget issues and everything else that we get concerned with. And the AD from Seattle did indicate that they have not cut any cutting out those weaker programs that haven't done well for them for a little while. And like Brad said, in larger schools, they are not running into the same difficulties that we are, so they're not going to be cutting some of those things. And when you don't have that balance, you lose the number of teams and people that you can compete against if you start making those cuts and they're not. And so, right now, we felt like we were in a deadlock because we really don't know the money situation enough to know what direction we should go into to make these cuts for ourselves.
I was just wondering, with the low participation teams, is there a way for us to combine with other districts? We've it's like Union Springs and Southern Union combining their football team for a couple of years and things like that. I just don't know if that's an option for us here at Jordan-Elbridge. That's,
I think that would be an option, but I'm not sure if it's a proper discussion should start. Talk about it now.
I do know that a couple of the schools that were there today that do have programs in other districts are looking to cut those programs because those are highly costly for them because of the transportation issues of getting people to the practice sites that they have to if they're not in within their district and those type of things. So I'm not sure if that would be a feasible thing either. And as Brad said, right now it is a very late time to look into something like that because of scheduling purposes and everything else.
I think when we had talked about one of the discussions about cutting the modified sports, we had talked about, we have a very strong rec program here. And we had talked about speaking with the rec program and Joe Patrick to see if perhaps in some of the sports, if the decision came down to cut the modified, because we know we need these as feeder programs. I mean, it's very hard if kids don't do something for a year or two to then step into it at a higher level. So I think we had talked about having that discussion with the town and Joe and the rec program and seeing if perhaps the town could take over some of the function and raise the age limit that some of these kids do play.
I have a fairly specific question. I know one of the previous documents that Brad had prepared said that some of the school districts for volleyball are planning to move that to the fall. Have we looked at that possibility, and do we know how many actually are going to make that move, and if we'll have teams to compete with if we keep volleyball in the winter?
We'll let teams compete with. Maybe some a little bigger, some small, but we'll let a lot of companies compete. We move volleyball in the fall, we give another choice in the fall, and I think it would take away from some small sports as well. And obviously run less fall in the winter with girls.
Moving on to marching band, winter drumline, and color guard. Under this was eliminate winter drumline, eliminate color guard, reduce number of paid positions. So, make some feedback here.
The one thing I wanted to add to this is, at some point, where do, I know, and I mentioned this with Larry a little bit earlier, where does jazz ensemble, things like jazz ensemble, the drama department, where do those things fall into play? Do they fall into play under extracurricular activities? Where are they budgeted? Are they budgeted out like winter drumline, marching, and color guard are? Do they have separate categories? And it's not that I want to eliminate, I don't want to eliminate any, but I just want to make sure we're touching on every single thing so that there's an equitable pain, as Brian puts it, across the board. So I don't want to miss anything. And I don't want to eliminate anything in sports. I don't want to eliminate anything in music. But the cold hard facts are we have to figure something out. And winter drumline and winter color guard, and they're both very near
are slowly but surely dying programs. And I say that because it breaks my heart. There's not that many schools that are participating in these events anymore, and it's on the table for everybody. You know, it doesn't mean that they're going to go away. I think that we have a great, just like we have a great sports boosters organization, and there are other things on the outside. We have a great band boosters organization that maybe can. These are low cost functioning activities. I think together they total about $10,000, not including transportation. And so, you know, I'm thinking that maybe somehow, some way we could fundraise for these programs. So I guess when I want to think outside of the box on these, because if we're talking about eliminating the funding, that's fine. But I would like to try to find some way that we maybe could still give them a place to practice and a place to do their activity without costing them additional dollars and cents if they have to fundraise for something like that.
This is something I'd like to find out about, how other schools fund this, if it is funded by booster organizations. I've heard not all of these winter programs are funded by the school district, and I think they are. I mean, it's like talking about some of the sports with lower participation, and the lower participation sports usually do have the lower budgets. I don't think in terms of the music department these are two high budget items, but if we could shift some of the financial, I mean, right now we know the boosters do pay for quite a bit of the expenses, and as a marching band, which has an assessment for the kids for a lot of the things that happen during the course of the year, including the trips, they might have to take a look at the programs and exactly how they can be kept in place with cuts. I would hate to eliminate them too. It is actually how our students, it's like the kids in sports who play all year round. It doesn't matter, there's always something they can be doing. It's the same with the music students. When marching band is over, they go right into the winter programs. Then they go into parade season, and then they go back into the marching band season.
Anybody else?
I think I feel a lot more comfortable discussing it with dollar amounts attached.
I can tell you that the total current dollar amount out there for marching band, color guard, and winter drumline is approximately $57,000 in the budget for 2010-2011, of which approximately $10,000 of that was geared towards winter drumline and winter color guard, not split equitably. Winter drumline is a much more costly program to run than guard is, and then the rest of that funding goes to marching band. Of the $47,000, approximately $27,000 of that is for staffing.
Does that include transportation?
No, it does not.
No. Okay. Anything else? Okay. I guess when we're talking about extracurricular, is this clubs? Is that what that is? Okay. I just wanted to know how functional all the clubs are that we do have and what the level of participation is and the interest, because I know we approve clubs every year and sometimes you don't hear much about them or you don't really know what's happening with them. So I'd like to have that reevaluated, and that's not something I don't think we can do. It's probably more coming from administration and staff. But I'd like to maybe put that back in there and give us some feedback on that since it's
And
not
I'd like to know the cost too.
in the cost of that.
I'd like to know the cost that basically I can get stipend. I'd like to know what's in the contract and what's not. I mean, we got a couple of different answers before about there's parts in the contract, there's parts in a memorandum attached. But my copies don't have the memorandum attached. So that kind of information too.
The next one is elimination of department chairs and team leaders. Our team leaders, is that the non-instructional side? Is that what the team leader is? Or is that the team leader is?
No, I believe that's on Dave's building.
Team leader, is that middle school?
On sixth grade team and all of that.
Okay, sorry.
I don't, it's all instructional.
I think again that has to come from
I was just,
Administration,
right,
that's not something.
that's not my call.
Judge.
I mean, it's just, it's hard to know, sitting here, what they do. Well, no, I mean, I think we know what they do a little bit, but when we're trying to put value on it,
Right.
it's hard to know where to value that, so.
I know that we went in the direction of department chairs so that there was consistency all the way down, you know, from the department and everything else. I can't weigh its value.
Well, that's what I wanted to say too, Jeannie. We are not trying to diminish the importance of any of these things.
No, I
But we have to examine them fully. I mean, same as if we consolidate positions. We're not trying to diminish the importance of some of these positions that might be cut to less than full-time. But we are going to have to make these hard decisions. So we will continue to need input from the people that know it best.
Okay, moving on to field trips. I don't know, I thought we had cut field trips years ago, and now it seems like we're back doing field trips again, so I guess I was a little confused about that.
I think we have done over the years.
Again, I think that's something we need to really consider. Is it instruction? Yes, to a degree it is, but is it really classroom instruction? No. And I don't know, I think a lot of schools have gotten away from doing field trips, and I'm in favor of, I don't know, again, what the dollar amount is attached to that, but I think it needs to be strongly considered. Okay. Equipment replacement, are we talking about just buses, blowers, sports equipment? No, not sports equipment, just other.
The reserve set up specifically for equipment replacement under the $100,000 threshold of the state aided, that's in the reserve. I assume you're talking about classroom equipment?
Could be
Technology.
Technology.
So you're talking about the 200 code that's contingent that you can't increase if we went to 200. Can you tell me what we're spending out of this year?
She'll get that figure.
Okay, great. Moving on to community use of facilities, reduction / elimination of overtime. I know we spent there's a lot of money spent with custodial staff on overtime with the use of our buildings. Considerable money. Right? Yes. These buildings are, yeah.
Right.
We have a set of custodians that have a normal, whatever their schedule is for their 40 hours. But when our buildings are open till 10 or 11 at night, it will run into overtime
That's right,
sometimes.
if I remember correctly, Charles said that I think the buildings in some way, shape, or form were open 363 days out of the 365 days last year for some type of involvement. It was closed on Christmas Day and New Year's Day, which basically translates, and we give all those services back to the community at no cost, or to the kids.
The kids.
The community, the kids, whatever. So, there's some significant costs there that we're incurring that, unfortunately, I think even if we partially pass that on in some way, shape, or form, would be a positive improvement. I hate saying suddenly you can't, but if we go to contingency budget, you can't open a building, frankly. Period. So I was trying to find somehow, some way. Right, so I would rather charge a minor dollar amount that recoup some of that dollar amount to help towards passing the budget than I would to say, sorry, you guys gotta pay, $67 an hour to come in here and play basketball.
And it's not just custodians, it's utilities, it's many, many things.
Okay, moving on to items that require negotiations. I know we started started to negotiate with some of our labor units. You know, a big one for me is healthcare. I'd love to see a better healthcare plan for the district. I'd like to see tuition reimbursement be taken out personally.
Well, because, to elaborate on that, the way the contract, from what I understand, reads now, we reimburse for tuition, and then we also turn around and we increase a salary dollar figure based on the amount of credential and or credit hours that a teacher earns. And I believe that they should continue education. I believe no one ever stops. But it's, well, that's in the contract. So I think that that's something we need to consider is, do you invest in yourself? At what point?
Right, it's a negotiation.
No, it's not.
It's probably a difficult topic for us to be talking about.
I think the salary part was.
Yeah, I know we're in negotiations, so we can't talk about it.
No, were any unions willing to take any type of freezes? I know you're hearing a lot about that right now, and I think that that's what we were talking about. Look at what West Tennessee just did with a salary freeze across the board. And I don't know if we have the ability right now to go back to any of our unions and say, hey, look, we need help, and is there anything that you are willing to do for us? And I don't know how receptive they would be to that, but I think we got to ask.
Okay. All right, moving on. Moving on to the consent agenda, could I have a motion, please? Actually, what I need to do is, we're going to I'd like to have a motion to table the appointment of spring coaches for the 2010-2011 season, to have a discussion in the executive session, discuss the appointment of the person, so I'd like to have that removed. Could I have number 12, could I have a motion, please, from somebody? Erica, could I have a second? Anna?
Taking out number 12.
Yes.
And is this where we'd like to lower the change order dollar amount from 50,020?
No, this is not, this is 12.
In the consent.
Meaning, are we adding to the consent agenda? Or are we
I have a motion on the floor right now, and I need to just hold that first, to table that one, and then we'll move on to adding the change order, okay? So then we do first, okay?
Any questions or discussion?
Okay, any question or discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstained, motion's carried. Okay, I'd like to add on to the consent agenda. I'm going to help you with some wording here on this. Number 15, we'll add number 15 to the consent agenda. And the change of...
It's going to be number 22 in O'Connell, and number 14.
Sorry.
Number 22 of... So, we'll be lowering the motion, and then for the Board of Education to approve the change order amount to 30, was it 20?
Lower the change order dollar amount from $50,000 down to $20,000.
Or can we just say,
Lower the change order dollar?
do we have to say it
Be it
lower?
resolved.
No, just,
Motion second, be it resolved, the Board of Education, Jordan-ElbridgeBOE School District lowers the minimum
no, just say 30,000.
Yeah, just say the new change order.
change orders for 30,000 or more will be approved by the board.
I thought it was 20.
20,000.
Thank you.
Can you repeat that again?
Motion by, and second by, be it resolved, change orders for the Jeboe project, 20,000 or more
Hang on. All right. Okay. So that's under the consent agenda. Okay. We don't need to do that. And we'll put it
It's
under,
not for spending money.
oh, you're right.
It's not for spending.
So we don't need a motion. All right.
Before we approve the consent agenda, and I'm looking through here, the winter drum line is leaving for a trip on Friday. Okay? And I know that it needs to be approved by the Board of Education, and it was not on here. And I was under the.
Yes, it is, number 414. Do you have a revised agenda?
Oh, it is on here. It is on here. I'm sorry. I read the first one and I didn't see the second one. My bad. I didn't see it.
I know our original agenda does not have it on it, the one that was sent to us. It is on this one. Okay, any further discussion? You gotta keep moving, folks. Okay, wait a minute. That's right. Could I have a motion, please, for the consent agenda? Ryan?
Second.
Second is Connie. Any discussion?
We took out 12, added 22.
Took out 12 and added number 22. All right. Anything else?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but just a quick question, because it's not clarified in number 14. The band is leaving, the winter drum line is leaving at
Sorry.
noon. So there's nothing in there for educational, you know how you guys put in the line, educational, teaching, or whatever it is. Drum line's leaving at noon on Friday.
Are we allowing them?
They leave at noon.
Are we? Did we receive an itinerary
Yes, we
for
did.
them? And are we giving them Friday as an excused absence?
If you looked at the attachments and what we were sent, there's a,
Well,
it's all in there.
are you sure that's not for lacrosse? I'm talking
No,
about the drum line.
honey, I read it. They're gonna go to the Smithsonian and that's the cross.
We allowed to get it for winter drum line.
I'm not seeing the winter drum line.
Okay, the winter drum line's on here. I just want to make sure, are we excusing them for Friday as an excused absence like we have done in the past? For an educational purpose. And I don't know because I don't know if he's planning on doing anything educational.
I don't know.
Is there?
And was it submitted 3 weeks in advance?
It was not.
This was something that was submitted to me. That's right. This is something that came in very late.
The cross one's done correctly, yes. The problem with the winter drum line one is that we had the transition in staff. Someone else thought they were doing it. From what and I don't know all the details. Someone else thought someone else was doing it. So I don't know what we're approving here.
Are we gonna get sued if we do it wrong?
There was a problem with the marching band trip because we did not excuse an absence for them to return on Monday. We need to make the decision as to whether it's going to be an excused absence for the kids based on an educational scenario or not.
They're leaving at noon on Friday?
They leave for Connecticut at noon on Friday.
And if they leave at noon, that means they start loading at 9 probably.
What?
Well, no, they're leaving this facility.
If
Sorry, my mom's chaperone. They're leaving this facility at noon on Friday.
Which means they need to start, they'll be loading up and getting ready and everything.
Does everybody know the answer to Connie's question?
So we probably didn't get an agenda.
I'm not sure how we can approve it.
Okay, the issue here is the paperwork was not turned in.
We have no paper. So you approve the trip, we can't give them the educational day. Alternative education.
Can we approve the trip and then go back and allow an educational day later? If we so choose, have it be an unexcused absence now, because obviously the marching band was an unexcused absence. If we approve the trip, which I believe that we have because it's on our agenda, but we're not approving the excused absence on Friday, can we go back later once we have the proper documentation and allow those kids the excused absence if all of the documentation meets what needs to be done?
Question, are the students coming in the regular day and then
Yeah.
leaving at noon, being signed up, so they actually will be in school that day, so it's a mute point?
No, they will not be, they'll maybe be in school for one class.
No, it's in.
The lacrosse one is an excused absence, that one is done properly, that one they're.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Same
It
thing.
doesn't,
But they're gonna miss pretty much a full day.
let's prove it.
I mean, Caleb's down the hall. Nobody wants to get him. Very well liked. And have him present it since he's the one that planned the trip.
Right.
I think we need to approve it,
Right,
and
that's my point.
You know what, this is the issue, you know, the paperwork has to be in, and it's just, this last minute stuff is so hard for us to get our arms around what's going on, so.
I mean, I think we should
okay.
approve it, I just,
All right, Larry said not to worry about the unexcused absence, either we're gonna approve it or we're not, so move on. We can't be punishing the kids for this.
right,
These are the ones. All right, we'll approve as is. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Motion's carried. Items for board action. Could I have a motion to approve the policy reading of 5511, please? Diana? Yes, I will. Could I have a second, please?
second.
Erica? Under 5511, reserve funds. Reserve funds are an important component to the district's financial planning for future projects, acquisitions, and other lawful purposes. To this end, the district may establish and maintain reserve funds in accordance with New York State laws, commissioners' regulations, and the rules and/or options issued by the Office of the New York State Comptroller as applicable. The district shall comply with reporting requirements of Article 3 of General Municipal Law of the State of New York and the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, GASB, issued by GASB Statement Number 54, Fund Balance Reporting and Government Fund Type Definitions. Any and all district reserve funds shall be properly established and maintained to promote the goals of creating an open, transparent, and accountable use of public funds. The district may engage independent experts and professionals, including but not limited to auditors, accountants, and other financial and legal counsel as necessary, to monitor all reserve fund activity and prepare any and all reports that the board may require. Periodic review and annual report. The Board of Education will periodically review all reserve funds. The district will also prepare and submit an annual report of all reserve funds to the Board of Education. The annual report shall include the following information for each reserve fund. A, the type and description of the reserve fund. B, the date the reserve fund was established and the amount of each sum paid into the fund. C, the interest earned by the reserve fund. D, capital gains or losses resulting from the sale of investments of the reserve fund. E, the total amount and date of each withdrawal from the reserve fund. F, the total assets of the reserve fund showing cash balance and a schedule of investments. And G, an analysis of projected needs for the reserve fund in the upcoming fiscal year and recommendation regarding funding those projected needs. The board shall utilize the information in the annual report to make necessary decisions to adequately maintain and manage the district's reserve fund balances while mindful of its role and responsibility as a fiduciary of public funds. The superintendent shall develop any necessary and/or appropriate regulations to implement the terms of the board's policy. That is policy 55. Any further discussion?
If we vote tonight, when does it take effect? So we would need the report for the budget process, annual report, and stated in. Just wanted to give you the heads up. I want you to get the word.
Okay.
You already have.
All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Motion's carried. Could I have a motion for the contract with Westfield, please? Erica? For a second. Roger? Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Motion's carried. Could I have a motion for the West Genesee contract, please? Connie? Diana? Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Motion's carried. Could I have a motion for the no confidence in the Board of Education? Board of Education, I'm sorry. There's public comments.
Was it on the agenda before?
Yes, it was on the agenda.
Wasn't on my agenda either.
It was on our agenda at the door. Our attorney just got this to us today, so we had it. Go ahead. It's not something we should do, but go ahead. I know, it should have been under the public agenda.
Posted on the internet. I looked to see what the agenda was.
Correct.
Here comes
We need your name.
You're not.
Can I just say something? It might be a good idea when you come in, even if you printed one off the internet. Sometimes we do have an addendum, and sometimes the revisions have been put on the one at the door, which is the one I picked up too. I mean, just for the future for everybody. I'm just saying for the
I think the
future.
agenda is to address the board. I picked up an agenda and I'm looking through it, and I see that the item was on there, but it was not on the agenda this afternoon. That's correct. When I looked at the internet. That's correct. Okay.
That is
I want to make it very clear that, first of all, I'm speaking as one resident of the Jordan-ElbridgeBOE School District. I represent only myself. My conversation goes back to talking to the superintendent and my concern about the situation, and he felt that it was probably only the 40 or 50 residents in the attendance that were disturbed about the situation. He may be right. So therefore, the idea was hatched that we circulate a petition to find out, a non-binding petition, to find out what the board, where the board stands, what the citizenry stands. You folks are elected to represent the citizens of this school district. Therefore, I would think that you would want to know what the opinions of your residents and your constituents are. I guess I'm rather perplexed to understand why you do not want to listen to your constituents and find out what they're saying. Now, I also get dealings with lawyers, and they give you an opinion. You pay for that opinion. You don't have to accept it, but you pay for it. It says it is not permissible, but I don't see anything here that says it is prohibited that the Board of Education seek to find out what the ideas and the thoughts of their constituents are. I would think, being representatives, that you would like to know what your constituents think. Therefore, I find that to say that it's rejected is inconsistent with your duties. Thank you. Furthermore, I have two more papers that would bring the total to about 281.
I would just like to make one statement, and I understand that there's a group of people out there, and I do listen, I am listening. But I hope everybody's aware of the fact that I know that there are people sitting in this room who do support the Board of Education. And we get letters and emails on a regular basis on the other side. So we are listening to both sides. There are both sides going on here. It doesn't necessarily mean that we have the ability to do what everyone is asking us based on the opinions that we've been given. Again, their opinions.
I fully understand that, and I recognize, and I certainly hope that there are people who support the Board of Education. But as a democracy, we should be able to listen to both sides. And when you reject that, that brings into question whether you're listening. You know, you've already gone through this, I guess it's, I don't know the numbers, where you've eliminated conversation from the public unless it's on the agenda. But you folks are the ones that make up the agenda. And as I said, When I looked on the agenda this afternoon, it was not printed on the internet. I came in, yes, I came in a little late. It was the first time I saw the agenda. But it's an agenda that you folks provide, and it was not posted prior. So you are stifling input from the community. I'm rather perplexed by your lack of willingness to listen to your constituents.
When we put things on the agenda, we have told the public, and we have said repeatedly, if you have something of concern that is not on the agenda, it might be possible to answer it at the next meeting or put it on a future agenda. So we are not purposely, by any means, trying to stifle comment. And we have upon occasion and been reprimanded for it, let people speak about items that haven't been on the agenda. And when I read this, it says it is impermissible subject matter under, and you're laughing, but
It's impermissible by his opinion. I see nothing
When
that says
people-
here, I see nothing that says that it prohibits you. I can't believe that the Board of Education is prohibited from having public input.
it doesn't say that. It says to put it up for vote of proposition, which was what was asked.
The
Impermissible means not permitted.
Proposition is non-binding. We are fully aware of that.
Thank you.
Okay, could I have a motion, please, for number 18? Erica, second, Brian. Any further discussion?
The proposals they have, we're talking about the elections are in May. So, I mean, there's 3 of us who are, our terms are up in 6 board meetings, and this was circulated, it was a whole lot of work, went to the attorneys, went to every board member, the directors, and then we're behind on other stuff. And we're getting questions about the attorney fees. I mean,
Okay. Any further discussion? Brian, any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed?
Wrong.
Michael? Could I have a motion, please, for number 19? Diana?
Second.
Connie? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion's carried. Could I have a motion for number 20?
So moved.
Connie?
second.
Diana? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion's carried. Could I have a motion for number 21?
So moved.
Diana? Second, Erica?
Erica or Brian?
Well, Brian's fine. I have Erica for the next one. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Wrong.
Abstained? Motion's carried. I would like to have a motion to go into executive session to discuss appointment of a particular person. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Diana? Second, Roger? I'd like to remove the 2 things, the matters leading to appointment, discipline, suspension of particular persons. Please remove that from executive session. Note, and also please remove discuss pending litigation matters. That was put on the agenda. That's not correct. It is just the appointment of a particular person, please. Thank you.
Can I ask for, under the calendar events staff listed, is there, can we be told if there are plans for the club? I just live Okay, good. I just.
Okay, all right.
You mentioned you have a motion.
So they're covered. All right, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carried. We will almost be conducting an item of business after executive session tonight. Meeting is adjourned to executive session.
We will be conducting business after the executive session.
Meeting adjourned to executive session and then